What is a social problem? This quick video explains how sociologists define social facts or social phenomena as a social problem. First, a social problem is any condition, behavior, or set of behaviors that have less than desirable outcomes for society. When a condition, behavior, or set of behaviors have measurable negative consequences that affect large numbers of people, then that condition, behavior, or set of behaviors are objectively a problem to society. So we'll call them social problems. Seems simple, right? Well, maybe. As a sociologist who studies the causes and consequences of community crime, I love to use examples from criminology and criminal justice. So let's think about unsupervised peer groups. Are unsupervised peer groups, well, in other words, groups of 5 or more young people, all 15 to 19 years of age, without structured adult supervision, hanging around in a neighborhood, are these unsupervised peer groups a social problem? What if the members of the group all dress similarly and seem to use hand signs to communicate or signal who they are to each other and other groups? At this point, you probably have a picture of this unsupervised peer group in your mind. Let's see if I can guess. Are you picturing a group of baseball players from the local high school team? They dress alike, use hand signals during practice and games, and they like to hang out together outside of school in neighborhoods near their homes. This group of unsupervised peers isn't necessarily a problem, right? Many of us can relate to groups of friends we hung out with in our middle and high school years. Just because we tended to look alike and we hung out with each other outside the watchful eyes of adult guardians didn't mean we were a social problem. As a criminologist, I don't consider an unsupervised peer group a problem unless their primary purpose is to commit delinquent behaviors. Those are acts that could lead to arrest if committed by an adult. Things like property damage, assault, trafficking in people or guns or drugs. In sociology and criminology, unsupervised peer groups can be defined as a social problem if the groups identify themselves as gangs, are regularly engaging in delinquency and crime, and doing so in a way that affects how large numbers of people in the community lead their daily lives. Objectively, I might be able to conduct research by systematically examining crime statistics, then reviewing details of arrest and conviction or adjudication reports, mapping the incidents, reviewing media reports about what crimes have occurred, where and who police or other authorities have determined are responsible for the crimes. I might even conduct a survey of residents to determine if they think that crimes committed by groups of local young people are a problem in their community or city. By conducting research, I can objectively determine if juvenile gang behavior is a social problem. Okay, seems pretty cut and dry, right? Well, what if the community relies on some groups of unsupervised peers to bring income into the community, to protect property and younger kids from drugs that are infiltrating the neighborhood, to protect the community from outside gangs coming into the neighborhood to commit crime? Subjectively, then, some residents might not see the unsupervised peer groups from their community as a social problem. They might argue that their unsupervised peer groups do more good for the neighborhood than not. Sound crazy? Think again. There are all kinds of conditions, acts, and behaviors that exist in society. Through a social constructionist lens, some conditions, acts, and behaviors rise to a level of negative impact that they are labeled by society as a problem. But not all conditions, acts, and behaviors, even when there are some negative effects, are defined as a social problem. For the social constructionist, unless affected residents in a society deem something a problem that policymakers, politicians, or other advocates need to address, then it's not technically a social problem. Perception matters. And through the social construction lens, perceptions matter at least as much, if not more, than objective analyses. When we define a social problem, remember that there is an objective component, evidence, and a subjective component, the perception that a condition or behavior is a problem that needs to be addressed. There are also stages in identifying and defining social problems. First is the claims making process. Behaviors or conditions are brought to the attention of the public as undesirable and needing to be addressed. Often, we see the claims making process by way of media reports or protests or maybe even on political platforms. The second stage is legitimacy. A social group gravely concerned about a problematic claim uses empirical evidence to show that the concern is real and one that needs to be addressed by some formal actions. The third stage is renewed claims making. Even when a condition or behavior is identified as severely problematic, it often isn't addressed completely or taken as seriously as some social groups think that it should be. Claims about the problematic issue are reasserted. Interest groups challenge formal agencies to better, sometimes more fully or more publicly, address the issue. Alternative strategies are developed in the fourth stage. Social groups are often very dismayed and disappointed by responses to legitimate claims and renewed claims. Often this leads social groups to develop their own ways to address what is now, objectively and subjectively, a social problem. Now that we can define a social problem and we have a foundation for understanding how conditions and behaviors with negative consequences are defined by social groups in society, we can move forward with an entire course dedicated to identifying and better understanding issues that prevent members of society from living their best life, from living to their full potential. We'll learn more about topics like poverty, inequities, health disparities, crime, substance abuse, and issues seemingly built in, intentionally or unintentionally, into the very institutions of society, like the economy, government, family, and even education.